Hi, this is Wayne, one of the clinical educators with iSimulate, and I just wanted to review some of the information from the conference call we did this morning on the Engage app and the training management system. So I'll share the app for the Engage on the screen so you can see it. So when you open the app, this is what the screen will look like, and it's going to ask you to connect. Both of the devices have to be on the same Wi-Fi, so whatever monitor and control system you're using for the REALITi and the phone that has the Engage app have to be on the same Wi-Fi system. And once that occurs, you'll just put in your name, and then you'll hit start, and then that will allow you to have visibility of the monitor that's on the Wi-Fi for REALITi. You connect to that, and then you're part of the scenario. It describes down at the bottom the scenario is running. So it tells you that things are active, and then you have the ability to disconnect as things occur within the scenario. So for example, they order a CAT scan and that is broadcast in the scenario, then that'll show up on your app as well. Maybe they want to do a new, let's see, we'll do a new chest x-ray and see if there's any difference. And we'll show you a new chest x-ray on the screen here as well. So as soon as the students receive the information, then it's sent across to the app here. And then you have the ability to expand it and look on your phone to have a little better view. And of course, if they do a 12 lead on the monitor, then that when the 12 lead is run, it's going to also be broadcast not only to the student's monitor, so they'll have the ability to view it where they're performing the scenario, but it also comes to anyone who's on the Engage app on that same Wi-Fi. So that 12 lead will pop up on the screen here, and you're able to view the 12 lead. And this is a good app for either students that want to observe the scenario. Maybe there's co-instructors or adjunct instructors that are not directly controlling it. This is only one controller, but they're participating in the scenario and they want to provide feedback. And even a medical director or somebody who's observing the scenario can look at it from this direction. One of the other things that you have is the ability to add a comment. So you can type something on the screen here and send that across, and that'll get compressed and put into the debrief at the end. You can also vote on the scenario. So you can decide if you thought it was good or bad performance or teamwork or communication by adding a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That's going to log based on the name that you put into the app when you began and show that that individual's name gave a thumbs up or a thumbs down as far as what you see for the debrief. So once the debrief is finished, I'll go back to the controller now and show you what that looks like, and then we'll talk a little bit about the training management system. All right, so we're back on the controller screen, and you can see this is the REALITi software. So at the bottom, when we end the scenario and we hit the stop, it's going to give us an ability to obviously make sure that that's the choice that we want to do. And then it will pull up the scenario review. So this gives you sort of the introduction to that training management system component. This is where you can do your debrief. You can scroll through these items on here. We'll start up at the top. Those blue bars across the top indicate the score that the student would have received, and that's based on the checklist items. So when you add or remove or you score an item on that checklist on the right-hand side of the REALITi software, this is where it's compiled for the debrief. Your timeline, so this is the types of vital signs that they've had across the depth of the scenario. So you can scroll through that timeline and actually make that visibility to whatever you want it to be as far as a point in time. And if we had the video running as well, then we can play a clip from that timeline. So if we hit a flag on the controller software, then the instructors can again add good, bad performance or teamwork, and they can also type in a note. If the video is running, it'll save 10 seconds before and 10 seconds after on the video. So you could jump straight to that clip and play that from the timeline. So rather than watching the full 15, 20-minute scenario, you can watch the 2 or 3 20-minute clips that help you to cover the items that you want for your debrief. The other pieces that are showing on here for your scenario review are your timeline of all the events that occurred across the scenario. So when they began CPR, when you turned on and off different waveforms, or the fact that we sent them an X-ray or sent them a CAT scan, they performed a 12 lead, Here's where the students who were watching voted on good communication. So when we did the thumbs up and the thumbs down, it marks it on here and it tells you which student provided that info. And then if they had typed in an actual comment, then that would be on here as well. So they could ask questions. So that's sort of the screen that allows you to do the debrief immediately after the scenario. And then if we come down here to the training management system, this allows you to take that same component and memorialize it either in a printed form or a digitized saved form, anything that you want. So your training management system has all of the items that you've used or you've done as long as they remain on this device. And I'll show you how to get to that training management system here directly. You can go as long as the debrief window is open just by hitting down here at the TMS. Otherwise, if we had, let's say we went in and did a new scenario, we've now come back and decided later on we want to go back and look at all the events, come to the main menu at the top left of the screen, and then you're going to go exit to menu right here. And then when you go back to that main menu, there's an iSimulate training management system button on the top right. So this TMS button is going to take you right back to that same screen that you had found before when you were actually just finishing your scenario. This is going to log all of your incidents on here. So the one that we're going to review is the debrief sample for today. And you can, again, rename this. You can put the student's name on there and the date. You can have all kinds of information, kind of mark that as the student's record. You have the ability to, it's a file, so you can export it as a CSV. You can send it as a digital file to their student record. You can print it as a PDF. Lots of different options here. So there's three main components, just like what we saw earlier. You have the overview of the scenario, you have the CPR log, and then the event log. So this tells you the overall scenario, when it started, when it ended, how long it lasted, whether or not we were monitoring with a CPR band, what the name of the scenario was, and the actual digital ID for that scenario. And then these are the scored items relative to that checklist. So you notice that some of those had numbers. You could do plus or minus. So maybe they got 6 out of 9 or 8 out of 10, whatever scoring you're using. This will give you the total positive or negative, and then their overall cumulative scores. You can mark things as critical as well, and you can have either done or not done. That's not an actual scored event. So those would just be yeses and nos. As we switch over to the CPR tab here, this is going to give you the details on the actual CPR that was performed, assuming that they had the CPR module wristbands included in the scenario. So it tells you the time the CPR began, the duration of the CPR, total number of compressions, the average of the compressions, and this tells you your percentage of time in terms of contact and no contact. This is your compression depth, and this is each individual compression. So you can see, for example, maybe they're getting tired at the end of their 2-minute cycle and it's drifting in a downward fashion towards low quality. Maybe they don't start out well, or maybe they're variable all over the place. It gives you specific feedback on each 2-minute cycle so you can help evaluate. Maybe you know student A who did this one, and they have a consistent pattern you want to talk about, whereas B is a little over-aggressive as they get farther into it. Here's your compression target rate down at the bottom, and you have, again, an ability to give feedback in terms of the quality of their CPR. We go to the event log. This is that same list that allows you to see exactly what occurred across the time. So you can show, again, when the students are watching on the Engage app and they thumbs up or thumbs down, that shows on here. You can tell by the icon, the empty circles are the items that are performed from the controller. Here's an image picture. So this is where we sent a CT of the head and the abdomen across. Labs were sent across. This flag is done from the controller app. So this is the instructor saying good performance, and this is the student saying they like the performance. So you have a differentiation in terms of those in the feedback. Here's an example where a comment was typed in by one of the students. Good job with the secondary assessment. And it shows you, again, the timestamp with each of these items. So that's another view of that same log. And then if we come down over here to the right and hit PDF, then that's going to give us a printable PDF kind of color version. And it gives all of that data in addition, so that you are able to log this. It's good for COEMS documentation, building the portfolio for their students. Again, the student's name, the email, all of that could be documented on here, the date of the scenario, how long it lasted, the start and stop time. These are those same blue buttons that gives you the score. And you can see now it's 7 or 8 pages worth of information. As we scroll down, these are the physiologic parameters as they trended across the scenario. So it breaks it out by colors and by blocks in terms of CPR, how long it was occurring, systolic and diastolic, pulse ox, heart rate. So you can trend and view those items across the time. And this gives you the beginning and end of your scenario and kind of a visual depiction of whether the students or the instructors were dealing with a scenario that improved or declined across time. Critical interventions, like here's a defibrillation at 200 joules, are marked on here, so those are easily visible. And then here's your CPR performance again. So it tells you the number of pauses based on time, the depth variability, the rate variability. So how many times were they too fast or too slow or too deep or in target in terms of the variability. It gives you bars that tells you the quality of that CPR, gives them an overall score for their CPR performance. So you could decide if you want the scenario to be successful at 50 or 60 or 90% as far as their CPR performance score. Same in terms of the depth, and you can see the bundles of compressions that are associated around our 2-minute cycles. And we had 34.3% within target depth and within rate of 23.7. This gives you additional information on the amount of pauses. So for BLS AHA, for example, when they're doing the group scenario and they're looking for that CCR, here's your 80% compression and 19% no compression. There's your chest compression fraction. Talks about the longest pauses and gives you the shocks delivered. As we scroll down, this is the patient information. So when the scenario was built, you can name the patient, you can have their condition, you can have a clinical story and a setting. Maybe it's a pre-hospital scenario is designed to evaluate, airway management, or maybe it's an in-hospital designed around sepsis, whatever you want that clinical story and setting to be. Clinical course, this is what you expect for it to happen. The patient's going to deteriorate and require RSI, the patient's going to improve with proper treatment, whatever you have. And then these are your discussion points. So maybe the person who built the scenario is not the one that's actually running it. So this allows them to know what things they want to discuss during the debrief. As we continue down, this is the event log, and you'll notice on the PDF version is not only just the timestamp and the information about what that was for, but it also includes the image. So whether it's a 12-lead EKG or a chest x-ray or a CAT scan, all of those actual items are going to be memorialized with this record that can be put in the student's file. So when COA or somebody comes with an accrediting lens to look at the scenario, they have all the information here as well. So it shows you the various images that were sent across. The same thing when the students who are watching like performance, or when the instructors add a flag, it gives you the same data in terms of waveforms and treatments. These particular items here came from the ZOL. So one of the soft keys on the side is they have the ability to document treatment. So if a student is trained to push the button and say we gave aspirin and we started oxygen, then that will timestamp those on here as well. Continues on, there's a set of labs that we sent across. So it documents all of the values for that ABG plus that we sent. Here's where you can add comments for the debrief. So this is where the instructor on the controller iPad actually typed in a handwritten comment. This is where one of the students voted, and the students can also comment. So it tells you the student's name, and it says, good job with the secondary assessment. Critical things such as defib, again, are highlighted in red, so you can quickly find those and see where they occurred and make sure the dosing and everything is correct. And that's sort of what the PDF debrief will look like. So it gives you a lot of important information. It does a very good job of compiling it and putting it into a format that is applicable to go into a student's record as far as documentation of what they did during this scenario. Alrighty, well, thanks again for taking the time to learn a little bit more about the Engage app and the training management system. And we have several videos on our Facebook page and also on the website, and certainly reach out to any clinical educators or somebody on the sales staff, and we can point you in the right direction if you need additional information or if you have questions. Have a good day.